Well, hey everyone. Come on in, join us, grab a seat, whatever it is you want to do. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here is the star of the podcast, the reason we continue to thrive in these types of conditions. It's Brit.
And be late and come on
how's
late.
Never. How's it going, Brit?
It's going. I forgot to tell you, my beer league, we had a bench clearing brawl last night, so it's been a couple days.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and neither I or my husband were involved, so that's a plus.
Well, that's a plus. That's always good.
It was nice to watch somebody else's husband.
You were telling me a story about a month or two ago during that championship game of yours. So just the opposing team were just nasty little monsters. So, yeah, not fun.
But this was my team, not my kids. Adults.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Okay. Yeah, no. Oh, the kids were also monsters for the most part. So I guess
that too. I'm sure. All right. Well, Avs are back in full swing, and we got a lot to talk about this week. So before we begin, don't forget everyone to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do that on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, Britt, officially about a week now since the I guess it would be a week since the
NHL
championship game. So you got games under your belt. You're back in the regular season, back in the Avalanche uniforms for all of our stars. And you kind of fell flat on your face.
Thank God for tonight's game because I wouldn't have wanted to do the podcast if we continued.
Minus this game against the Devils. Yeah, it was just kind of yeesh. So,
but I was looking up stats, and I just wanted to throw it out there. I wanted to see how other teams with heavy numbers that went to Four Nations, and all I got to say from it is Connor McDavid was -9 since Four Nations. So
yeah,
it's not just, I think it's a thing. I think we have the most impactful players that were gone and tired and stuff. So I feel like between that and this game tonight, I can get over it. But yeah, we should probably still talk about how underwhelming our grand return to hockey was.
I think so.
We're given a silver platter with two teams to kick their ass, and
exactly the one that I thought was going to be a tougher game. Speaking of New Jersey, ended up being the easiest, relatively speaking. And then the game against Nashville and then St. Louis, the two I thought for sure would win. We lost, and we'll get into that right now, actually. Okay, so starting first, the game against Nashville. So remind you, it was back-to-back, Nashville, St. Louis. You lose both. 2-1 lost to Nashville, 3-1 lost to St. Louis. So speaking of Nashville, this game was a snooze fest. if I were to ever say something, and that's not a slight against the effort from some of the players, but overall it was just lackluster. It was just like, it felt like. Sorry, go ahead. Nope. Did we lose her? You there, Britt? Hello. Oh dear, we might have lost her. Okay, so if that's the case, I will go ahead and spill my 2 cents on this. So the only player that actually played decent in this game against Nashville was, in fact, UC Saros. Obviously, in my opinion, that's because he has fresh. He's more fresh, I guess, is just the ultimate way I want to say this, playing in the Four Nations and things like that. So he didn't have any rust, I would say. He was about the only one, I would say, that played with any real, I guess, urgency, played well, whatever it is you want to call it. Now, that being said, obviously, we know that we had 4 guys on the Avalanche that had, fresh legs, so to speak. They weren't vacationed or anything like that. So you'd expect them to do better, but something just wasn't clicking during that game. I'm not entirely sure what it was. We'll get Brit back in here in a second. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but for some reason, just nobody was on the same page. There's a lot to do with nothing, I guess, is one way I could summarize it, where it's just passing around, not really, just kind of sauntering, getting your legs back. Not a lot of like actual aggressive play, I guess, is one way I would describe it. So that would be the ultimate demise, I guess you could say, to the reason that the Avalanche lost. And again, 2-1, and they weren't like, it just felt like if the Avs just gave it some effort, they would be able to just play and win. It wasn't that hard to beat. And Wedgwood played a fine game. I don't think he was terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Welcome back, Brit.
Can you hear me? I have no idea what StreamYard's doing, so I'm just gonna be here in whatever form they'll allow me.
We got you. So, kind of with what I was saying, Britt, is that it just feels like if the Avs played, it just gave any effort, they would be able to win this game.
The Preds game? Yes. Did you move on? Yeah, it was one of those ones that kind of thought of maybe this team isn't really capable of going very far, where you really start to doubt their depth and just their heart in general. To me, it was like a gut check type. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, for sure. And that was the hard part too, is because kind of what I was saying when you were kind of tuned out there was UC Saros seemed to be the only guy that actually played well. Everyone else was kind of just
yeah.
And part of that was because we were just throwing easy shots on net. There were a couple where he had some really impressive saves, but
how many times do we talk about how good goalies play against us? At what point are we just making goalies look good?
That's the question. It's the age-old question, really. We make goaltenders look like Vezina Trophy finalists. Like I don't know what it is.
Only on the West Coast we have made them truly millions of dollars.
Yeah. So just weird. Sam Malinsky has the lone goal in this game. Awesome clapper from him. That guy's got a rocket of a shot.
Did you know that was in there? 97 miles an hour, I believe I read.
Is that what it was? That doesn't surprise me, honestly. I mean, we've seen him snipe from the blue line, and if there wasn't traffic in the way, that thing would burn a hole in the goalie's glove. Like it's nuts just how fast that thing can go.
Because he is not guaranteed anything at this point. He's been very quickly losing his role, and I would like to see him stay there. So I hope he can keep working, because every game prior to that, it seemed like 15 games since he's played a really good game. He started off good, but yeah, it was really nice to see him get that.
Yeah, I agree. So again, it's just one of those, like, that's one loss that you shouldn't be able to afford, but you go into the next game being like, hey, you pick it up.
Every point
matters. Around.
Yeah.
And, you played 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes of the game, which was great.
Yeah.
But then that second frame, St. Louis gets all three of their goals, one of which was within a minute from the period break. And I'm just sitting there going, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what? You had something for 20 minutes and then you just let it go.
And you had
St. Louis held you.
It didn't do anything. Like there was no setting the tone with some violence, so it just felt like really nothing was going to get him there.
Yeah, it was, and St. Louis locked them down the whole rest of the third period. Again, this one felt like kind of a shell of the Nashville game, in that if you just gave any effort whatsoever, you could come back and tie the game, or at least get within one and have a chance late, something like that. But they just kind of gave up. They stopped trying.
Well, and it's just really shining a light on the problem that is the depth scoring, because we see that Cale Makar and our big guys are going to be, most of the ones that have been gone are tired. And when they're not performing, nothing's happening. Something has to happen, even when Nathan MacKinnon has a bad day. We have to be able to win a game without Nathan MacKinnon being actual. Like, I don't know. And it's starting to make those problems very glaring. Man, I couldn't find them before I got on here, but the statistics of the last time that like a lot of the depth guys have scored is kind of scary. There is like a lot of space between our bottom six and our top like four for scoring. It's way too wide.
Yeah. And that becomes very apparent in the next game that we're going to talk about, which for us just wrapped up, but for you guys would have been yesterday. And that's the one against the Devils. So the Avs win this one. It was 5-1. I think I told you before.
Oh, was it?
Reported 4-1. Logan O'Connor got the fifth one. I misread that.
I just said the other day, when the heck is Logan O'Connor going to do something?
No kidding. Well, good news. He's alive. In fact, you get to see a couple of these guys be alive. So 5-1. So they turn things around. Great. Awesome. That's what we know. That's what, what we come to expect, what we want. But it's just so bizarre to me how that can come about. And I'll get to that in just a second. So Arturi Lehkonen opens up the scoring in the first period. Awesome goal, he always seems to be in the right place at the right time.
It's not the only thing that you can rely on this team day in and day out. It feels like it's the only thing that's like always going to be the same is Lehkonen is going to be busting his ass off.
Mm-hmm. And that was just what I was thinking. I was like, that was his 24th goal, which I believe, as far as the team is concerned, I think that leads goals.
That's insane.
Yeah.
He missed the first.
He leads goals on the team. Say that again.
Didn't he? What did he miss? The first month?
Something like that. Yeah. And he's been so pivotal ever since, So
I will say it every time I talk about him is he is like the most valuable underappreciated or underacknowledged player in the NHL. Like I would pay him $10 million.
No, but seriously though, he is becoming what Rantanen became like 5 years ago, where he was just sneaky good, but still under the radar for everyone until he became an all-star, and then he kind of showed up on the radar, and then he just kept getting better. So I'm thinking Lehkonen's kind of taking that same approach, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
Say that again.
It'll definitely be interesting because if he hones up his scoring abilities, I mean, he's got so much more fight in him than anybody else out on the ice almost every second of the game that it would be terrifying if he were to become more skilled.
Yeah. Third or second period, no goals. Third period, Nathan MacKinnon opens up the frame with a power play goal. So it's good to see that the power play was kicking back again. So you're up 2-0, but that's when Jack Hughes scores and they're within one. Now in this case, I was worried that our world was going to come tumbling down. We were going to choke it away, whatever it was. I was starting to be like, oh my gosh, here we go again. But 3 goals
with the consistency that we have not shown at any point.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I was thinking we're still rusty from the All-Star or the Four Nations break. It's just one of those, we got to shake that off at some point. And lo and behold, they did. Within 4 minutes, they scored 3 goals. MacKinnon bats one out of midair into the net, which was like the most beautiful goal because he was like partway behind it and he kind of baseballs it back kind of toward the net. It was cool. Like it was so cool.
MacKinnon just has a way that if he's not scoring goals, then he's going to go like take a goal. Like he
No, seriously.
forces them. There's moments where you can tell that there is no way that he will be putting the puck in the net. It may not be in any kind of way that anyone expects, but it's one of those nights, which thank God, because I needed to see some life in this team. I've kind of just had like a creeping anxiety with them the last few days after those 2 games, but they had just have to, which I guess we can finish this game and then I can get on with that. My begging for consistency from them.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this one up then, and then we'll hop on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
The next goal, so 3 in a row. McKinnon was one on the power play again. Great job. The next one goes to Casey Middlestat, a beautiful backhand shot, and this one felt like a weight lifted off his shoulder. And I know we've said that every single time he scored now 10 goals, but again,
he scored 9 of them like in the first week.
Yeah, pretty much. And then for your 2C, you would expect that to be in almost 20.
When did he get a couple goals real quick and we thought he was getting out of his slump? Was that against, or did he have a hat trick? He didn't have one, did he?
He hasn't had one yet, but I remember he had a 2-goal game.
He had that one bust out night that we were like, this is it. Like he is breaking out. We're all good. Yep. We're all cool. And if I remember correctly, was that not the first time that Nuke came back? Was when he had a really good little stint there?
I don't know. Let's hope. I mean, time might add up there, but maybe.
I feel like it. I'll have to check because I'm not sure. I was kind of surprised about the Duran Nuke Middlestat line, but it's a lot of lines are going to look kind of weird without Randon in there. Like everything changes. Yeah. But Middlestat is like single-handedly controlling so many different variables of trade options, Twitter posts, Twitter discussions, trade boards, everything in the next, is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, March 7th, trade deadline. So yeah, here in a couple weeks.
And I don't want to say he's running out of time because I think we are more impatient with him as far as like actually leaving than they are, but it's hard to believe that they won't
potentially
take a deal in front of them if it's
and that was one thing that I did want to bring up, so we'll dive into that one in just a second too. But then Logan O'Connor also gets a goal, his 7th of the season, just kind of one of those down in front, he happened to be right place, put in type stuff. So awesome to see him there. I know he missed a lot of time as well, but he gets less rewarded for his effort than most people, in my opinion.
So much abuse on his body, and he works so hard to be, it's just insane. If he could finish, imagine all those breakaways if he could finish. But I truly think that he is a shining example of a human being and a hockey player. And I love it when Jared Bednar says that when they get somebody new, they specifically tell them they want them to watch LOC and emulate LOC. Like that's who they want them to look to for like insight. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's nice when sometimes the guy that works his ass off and is a good guy actually does get rewarded for it.
He's never in the right situation where he can thrive because he's either killing off a penalty or something to that extent. So I think in this type of situation where if you just let him show his capabilities, he can do that, right?
He filled in on the first line for a couple. I mean, he's a fixer. He's had to.
He is.
I'm not sure if I'm freezing here, but he's
maybe it's probably
a lot
me.
like Lehkonen. He ends up having to hold together some lines that are not quite right and maybe limping a little bit. And generally, Lehkonen and LOC are the two that are leaned on the hardest for that.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. I recall, for example, last season when you had Cogliano, you had Yakov Trenin, you had Logan O'Connor, right? They could all share some of that burden. And you even got to see it where Logan O'Connor began to take advantage of that, scoring 3 shorthanded goals in 3 consecutive games. You remember that?
Oh,
It was
yes.
amazing, right? So for him to get rewarded, and again, I know our expectations for him is not to blow people out of the water, 40 goals a season, stuff like that. But it just feels like
No.
there's a couple of times where he's just robbed, whether if it's off the post, a really great goalie save,
sure.
or he gives it up and they miss it's like it's just
But
not
when
fair
he
to him
figures out how
sometimes.
to finish those breakaways, the league is screwed, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has had so many robbery, like highway robbery, just flying by the net. I can think. It feels like. Do you think it's 20 a year that he gets breakaways and doesn't score?
I think that's
Clean?
that sounds fair. Yeah,
Yeah,
just not
we'll
fair
see.
sometimes. But
He's
yeah,
still a baby.
it is what
He's
it is.
coming
But awesome to see him get credited with this goal, and hopefully that kind of builds a momentum for him. So
Yeah.
okay, so those are the past 3 games. Let's kind of talk about what we were going to originally through here, and Britt, the inconsistency. So we touched on that a few minutes ago, but we're going to open that up a little bit more. 1-2-0 in these 3 games.
Yeah.
This is something you can't afford at this stage in the game where you're not in a safe spot. What do you think?
No, it's maddening that a month ago we were saying these are the points that you're going to look back and wish you had gotten, and now it's like these are the points that you're going to look back when you get eliminated in the first round because you have to. You know what I mean? It's not a luxury. They're not luxury points anymore, and the farther we fall down, the less likelihood we have to be able to have the freedom to give our guys some rest, like Makar. And I'm not talking about like giving them a week off, but at some point they're not even going to be able to take a game off, and they're going to have to play balls to the walls against every single team. There's going to be not that NHL players will ever admit that they coast, but you play different when you know that you're the first, you know what I mean? And we're getting to the point where do we want to be playing like we're fighting for a playoff spot in March? Like it's just insanity to me. And especially when you're doing it in such a lifeless fashion, those last 2 games, the prior 2 games.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. But a couple things to keep in mind, though, is you're sitting at 70 points, right? You're 34, 24, and 2. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting at 70 points, you're only 2 points behind Minnesota, right? Which is who you play next.
Man, they just they took our bad luck and ran, man.
Which I'm hoping that kind of continues. No offense to Minnesota, but you're only 2 points behind them and 6 behind Dallas, right? So it's reachable. Everything's fine. I think Winnipeg, it's probably out of the question. You're pretty far behind them. But as far as Minnesota and Dallas, it's reachable. It's attainable. You need to win games, right? I'm not saying we're not hitting the panic button. But on the flip side of that, you need to win in order to catch up.
We're kind of hitting the panic button.
It's tempting. I know it really is.
It's hard.
But on the flip side of that, teams, how many teams here? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4 teams that are chasing you that if you're not careful, they're within 10 points of you now.
That's the thing is
if you're not careful,
Utah's saying the same about us.
That's exactly it, right? They're talking about this, that they're in the hunt, right? Vancouver's chasing you, Calgary's chasing you, Utah is chasing you, and St. Louis, right? Those 4 are the ones that are fighting for that first wild card spot so they can have the cushion. You have a 5-point cushion right now, but that is slowly diminishing.
And with the way we lost
losing 2 of those games does not help your case.
One of the ones that's chasing you. It's hard to believe that the Blues couldn't catch us at that rate, the way that we play against them. And what to fire them up than by kicking our asses?
Yeah. And so that's, like I said, I don't think, I mean, I'm hopeful that the Avalanche will figure things out and start a winning streak or whatever it is you want to call it, right?
This is where, I mean, this is kind of that pivotal moment where you start, they ramp it up and they assess the team. This is what it is. And until deadline, and then you make your move and it's all the trek up. I'm hoping that Winnipeg peaks too early and that we're going to peak right around playoff time.
Yeah. I mean, that if the timing works out, that'd be ideal. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, does the team that starts off super hot, crazy hot, ever win the cup?
I think it all depends on momentum going into the playoffs. Yeah. So I would agree where it's like maybe you start the season blazing hot, but then fizzle out toward the end of the season, but that's what you carry into the playoffs. So yeah, I'd agree with you there.
It seems like it's always someone else that picks it up at the end and figures it out, even if they
unless you're Tampa, where you just squeak by and then turn on the Jets.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. That's Tampa would be the opposite. Like Edmonton was like nearly a statistical impossibility of it was like 5% or under to get into the playoffs at one point, and then they made it to the end. So I don't know. Yeah, just say we can't figure shit out.
So at this point though, Britt, like I just told you, we're only 2 points outside of third in the Central, 6 outside of second in the Central. But on the flip side, there's only 5, 7, 9 points behind you. Is the mentality, if you were the Avalanche, is the mentality to be the one, you're aspiring upward and you're chasing the 2 teams, or is it more the fact that you're trying to run away from the other 4 that are behind you? Do they both motivate?
I mean, you got a bear in front of you and a cake running away from you. I mean, they are just truly not in a comfortable place this year like they've been in past years, and hopefully that's a good thing. Maybe they need a chip on their shoulder. And to hear some people, I mean, people are talking about them like they are the past Avs. What year would it be? Like 1920, where we had all these superstars, but we did not do very good. People are like seriously starting to have rumbles of this team is a fraud. So it might be good for them to hear that.
It might, and you might be right. Which brings me to my next topic of discussion. Trade deadline is looming. It is a seller's market because there's a lot of teams that are right there in the playoff hunt.
Yeah. And it's such a weird time because they know the cap's going up. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think it's my connection ultimately, so I apologize about that.
I feel like I keep talking the second you do.
Well, as long as we got some chatter going, the listeners will figure it out, right? But again, what's the Avalanche's move now with this? Again, 2 weeks away. What's the move, and who is the move? Early.
I don't know. It doesn't feel as fun to just say I want Sidney Crosby anymore when it feels like we have real desperate needs, because I do want Sidney Crosby. I'm really curious to see if, I don't know. I think it really depends in the next 2 weeks if Josh Manson and Casey Middlestat can prove that they can put together a stint of games that are up to what we're expecting from them and need from them. I mean, it's so hard to remember that Josh Manson was one of the most influential forces in that Avalanche winning their cup. And I don't care that it's almost like really frustrating to me that so many people shit on him all the time, but go back and watch. Josh Manson was an absolute animal, and he was critical in our Stanley Cup win. So he's just been too up and down, and it's business. So I'm curious to see at some point we need better D support. Our defensive depth is not good enough, and we need a 2C.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're going to want to move Natchez down and try the center thing with him. I think they'll make another move.
Yeah.
And it might be a painful one.
And that's the one right there is that everyone's talking about is Casey Middlestat. I mean, either his time is ticking or the decisions have already been made that it's just not working, right?
And it's hard to
So
sell when it sucks to sell when stock is low, but I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, and that's the thing is he's a fantastic player. I mean, you saw what he was doing in Buffalo, and he even had a lot of that translate
When he
over
was a
from last
playoff
season.
beast. Yeah, he was
But
really good.
but it's just something hasn't worked, and that's the thing is since the Avs are still in that Stanley Cup window that we always talk about, it's you either are on the bus or you're not, right? And it's hard to make these types of moves. So
And
there's
pray that
probably a team that's going to
Nichushkin
go out
stays
and look.
healthy too.
Yeah, there's going to be a team that's going to go out and probably want Middlestat for whatever it is, and
Yeah.
maybe that's the move for him to get that career back on
I mean,
track.
it might
But
just be a hockey trade for change of scenery.
yeah,
Let's try it. Because if you're looked upon, what's his face? Darcy Kemper doing all right.
yeah.
Both of them.
As far as that defensive depth, though, there is one guy that I think the Avalanche could sign. Kind of like it's like he's putting the cape back on, you know. I
hope
think it's
so hard.
I think it's time Tyson Barrie comes back, Blazing
Felt like
Saddles
it was
version.
the world
I want him
speaking
back.
to us.
I want him back so bad. You have no idea.
I thought there was a slight glimpse, but then I haven't watched him closely, and judging by the way people reacted when he was waived, I'm guessing he is probably due for a retirement.
As
It hurt
probably
my heart.
99% accurate that statement is, I am still that's my Sidney Crosby belief is that we get Tyson Barrie back. And he dusts off, it's the whole we're getting the gang back together bit where he's like, oh yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And he was still jacked and ripped the whole time despite having gray hair,
I mean, it's so sad to talk about these guys like they're just like 95 years old. Like
he's not much
35.
older than me.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like
younger.
if you do, I just feel like the old
timing
Tyson
was
Barrie
insane.
could come out because he's so used to playing with McKinnon and Landeskog and all these players.
Morale and the vibes would take him a long way.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Just get rid of Calvin DeHaan. No offense to Calvin,
I was gonna say
he's performing about the same. So why
Middleton?
not just get him back? Number 4 is available. So I mean,
and we already have
all
all
works
his jerseys. So right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was hoping for. Oh, I couldn't believe that. When I saw him go on. Nick and I were talking. We had the U.S. game loss, and then Tyson Barrie went on waivers. What, like an hour after?
Yeah, it was a rough night. And you were the one that actually broke the waiver news because I didn't see that because I was
told me.
Yeah,
I was like, this is God.
I couldn't believe it, and so like I'm all caps responding like, "Are you kidding?
Yeah,
now's our
the world is
time."
giving you Tyson Barrie back. This is things are okay.
That's justice. That's what that is.
And then it was just
and no one picked him up.
Joke.
And I was mad.
Oh, is he gonna? Is he gonna play in the AHL? He's such a humble guy, but
he's too busy working on his Chili Ones brand. So I don't know.
That's what. Have you tried it?
No, I don't drink, so
beers?
It looks good.
He made non-alcohol ones too with the.
Oh, did he?
He was on a podcast. I think so. I'm not sure, but I could have swore that was part of the selling point. I'll check because it seemed like it was either his or a different alcohol from a hockey player. That part of their little thing was that they wanted to offer something that was better than O'Doul's or whatever.
I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was just another like seltzer or beer or something like that. So
yeah,
turns out I need to do a little bit better job with my fandom, Brit.
More drinking.
Yeah, that's right. But Tyson Barrie could still be an Av, Brit. You never know.
It is this just as likely as Sidney Crosby will be an Av.
Hey, you make it sound like it's going to happen tomorrow, okay? So I'm going to have that same type of faith instilled in myself, okay?
Exactly. 100%.
It's inspired me, Britt. You've
Manifesting. I
inspired
think that's
me
what
is
they
what
call
you've
that.
done. Okay.
No, if anything, we need locker room guys. So just bring him in and he
Yeah.
can just chill and sit on the bench.
And maybe we get Nazem Kadri back. Maybe that's the trade, is Casey Middlestat for Nazem
That's what
Kadri.
I've pondered that a couple times, but I don't know if that's the right. I think that ship sailed, and I think that they know he wouldn't be what we would expect from him. I don't know. It just seems weird that it doesn't seem to be even a consideration, but nothing that they do ever is.
That's true. That's very true. So we'll get into more depth about trades and players that we might think would fit if they end up making
Next
the trade.
week we'll have a lot more.
Yeah, and in the next couple of weeks we'll kind of dive deeper into it, especially the episode before the trade deadline. We'll go pretty hard on that subject, but we just want to start brushing the surface, putting the carrot on the stick for you guys to start
We're learning
thinking.
as Avs fans to not make these hard line trade predictions because they don't matter. So
Exactly. Okay, that brings us now to the upcoming games. So, Britt, there are only 2 games that we need to worry about.
yeah, almost like they could have spread out the back-to-back immediately after coming
you'd
back.
think, you'd freaking think. But that being said, the game Friday against the Wild, which we just talked about, they're 2 points behind. That's huge. That's going to be a position swap right there, right? And then you have the Penguins. Sidney Crosby might be wearing a different sweater, playing his former team on Tuesday, right, Britt?
The stats didn't lie. The eye test passed with him and Sid at Four Nations.
It does.
So
He looks
certainly
pretty good in
be
a
reasons
sweater
to not do it there.
There you
And
go.
I'm sure playing with Makar too, just one more little sweetener.
Yeah. And then so that game against Pittsburgh is on Tuesday. So you got Friday and then all the way to Tuesday. So you got some time, but this is going to be my concern though, Britt. So you just got off a big win. You're riding high, full of momentum. That's my key to the game for this Minnesota game, is to keep that momentum, because right now Minnesota
what was the score
has
the last one? They whomped us.
They have reverse momentum. Speaking of Minnesota,
oh man.
But yes, right? They've so granted the Wild have won, I think, 3 out of their last 4, something like that. But their losses have been bad losses, right? Like they got whomped 6-0 by the Senators, right?
Yeah.
So
is Kaprizov done for the year?
He might be. That's what a lot of people are thinking, and I don't know if that includes playoffs or not. I don't think so, but you never know, right?
Who's the other guy that they just lost? One of their
Eriksson.
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
And he was like
huge.
It would be really nice to absolutely kick the crap out of them. And I know that I say that probably every time we play them, but the moral value in beating the Wild versus beating them and like stomping them into the ground, it would be a good time to do that and invigorate the team and its fans, because the fans are very, I don't know. It just felt like fans are not super excited or hyped about the Avs right now, and maybe I have too many Avs fans that are Americans, so we're just bummed out about the USA game.
Probably.
But yeah, they need a little bit of noise, I think.
And I think you're right.
Good noise.
Interestingly enough, though, as our audience is watching, I'm probably at the Delta Center right now watching Minnesota play Utah. So I get to see kind of the team that's going to be going up against Colorado here on Friday. So my hope is that my takeaway of Minnesota is correct, that if they are faltering, if they are in their own heads, they tend to play pretty poorly. Now, keep in mind, the last time Minnesota played Utah, it was at Minnesota's house, and they got shut out, right?
Yeah, that's a big house.
So I'm hoping that that's what happens here against this game in Utah. Ergo, that's the momentum that carries into this Colorado game. So that's going to be my key to the game. is understand the importance of this game, meaning standing swap, right?
Yeah.
Because that's big. That, you know, people are then going to go chase Minnesota instead of you, right?
Yeah.
So just remember that there's a lot on the line here, right? It's a home game. It's a Friday night. You got to bring the energy. The team has to bring the urgency. So there's a lot on the line in this game.
Yeah, it's been like almost a month.
Yeah.
Since they've had a good win at home in their arena. Like,
yeah. And Utah's coming off of the 2-game home winning streak. They beat Washington in a shootout. They beat Columbus overtime. Like they're coming off some pretty close wins, but they're fighting wins, right? So
they're
hopefully
a wild
maybe
card that just catch teams so off guard. It's
Yeah.
so fun. I'm so jealous that you get to go to watch them live all the time.
it's so much fun. I tell
Are
you
you
what, this
wanting to
game's gonna be
see, is
fun.
Fleury playing, or does the Wild announce that relatively early, or
Oh, I don't
can you
know.
guess
We
based on
certainly hope so.
schedule?
We certainly hope so.
Oh God, yeah.
But again, maybe Utah even roughs them up a bit, so it's easier for us. You know what I mean?
Hopefully. I mean,
Most ideal.
what's his face? Boldy was outstanding at Four Nations, so it's hard to believe that he's not bringing that back here and flying and still feeling good, because
Yeah.
I mean, I was incredibly impressed by him. So I just hope that I don't know. I hope we don't drop a bomb, because it feels like it could be a bomb drop, because they
It could be.
like doing that. But
it's just, again, back to fundamentals, back to basics. You've got the rust shaken off. You got a win in your pocket now. It's time to get that
hopefully
streak
we can
going.
kind of find some stability in the lines at this point with Nuke back, and pray to God he stays back. I think that it sounds like it's a groin injury, so that's terrifying.
Yeah.
But I mean, considering he was almost ready before, and he took the whole nation's time off, I'd say that they were safe with it. But
yeah,
it would be nice to see some lines forming and staying.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so next one after that, Tuesday, 7 p.m. puck drop against Pittsburgh. So again, this one's going to be a marquee event. Ironically, I don't think it's nationally broadcast this time, which is a bit strange, because usually they like to do that.
Aren't we always broadcasted with the Penguins?
I remember, at least, you know, for the Crosby McKinnon games, they usually threw those on a national broadcast, but for some reason this one's not. So I wonder.
I always struggle.
I wonder if ESPN knows something we don't. It's going to be a blowout. We're going to win 7-0. But again, this is your marquee matchup. You know, same keys to the game that it usually is a lot of eyeballs. You know, despite it not being on national broadcast, people will go and watch this game on ESPN Plus, right? Like that's going to be the thing.
The Penguins are going to have kind of like probably a week of gut check whether they are worth even. I mean, I don't know if they're going to go full-blown fire sale on the people that they claim to want to sell, or not super important, the ones that are left anyway, but they had a brutal ass kicking, and they have given up a brutal lead in an ass kicking. Was it the Caps that beat the Penguins? I think I'm mixing them up now. What was the last one?
It was like
or was it the one against the Caps that was like 6-1? That was the Flyers?
Yeah, it was like
6-1.
7-2 or something like that. Just a yikes kind of game. And then the Rangers
and then the Caps did it too, didn't they?
Yeah, like it was just one of those what happened moments. I don't even know. So we'll have to find out.
It was so funny because we were watching that Caps game the night before, and we were like, the Caps scored 6 goals and Ovi didn't score any. That's insane. And then boom, Ovi comes out and scores a hat trick the next day. He's like, don't you judge my goal scoring abilities? He is at 13. So the heat is on.
There you go. So yeah, those are the only 2 games that we have this week. Again, not a lot. So hopefully those days in between really don't kind of end up coming back to bite the Avs in the butt.
No, hopefully they push Crosby to come here and give us some extra points.
Because
if that ass kicking this weekend doesn't, then
Yeah,
I guess
no
I'm
kidding.
just going to give up hope on him.
There you go. This could be the make or break time, Britt. You're going to have to really dig deep here. But yeah, that's kind of it as far as what we had for today's episode. So, Britt, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, sir. I hope it
Okay.
stays uneventful without injury and just.
And we win.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big part right there, is those 2 games.
Yeah.
Again, not a lot of games. So we're going to have to really focus on the fact that it's
nice to get some rest. Hopefully that is good for them. Well, for the 3.
I agree. Okay, well, that's going to run us to the into the ground here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network. If you like what you saw, again, please go to the MHRT Network and give them a like and subscribe, follow, so you get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, we're going to enjoy a nice weekend, right? We're going to have a win. We're going to win on Tuesday. We're manifesting that now so it can happen. Okay? Fingers
Setting
crossed.
it out into the...
Get your rabbit's foot out. Whatever it is, Lucky Charms, I don't care what. Get them out. Well, however it is you want to manifest good luck, we're going to need it because this is getting it really tight in the wild card spots. So with that being said, we hope everyone has an awesome weekend. Let's grab 4 points. And as always, go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come